These are devotions for people at a social distance. This morning in my devotions, I was reading in Deuteronomy chapter 11, and I was struck by something in that passage that I'd never quite noticed before. This is Moses addressing the people of Israel as they prepare to enter into the promised land after this time in the wilderness. And at some point he says this: "For the land that you are about to enter to occupy is not like the land of Egypt, from which you have come, where you sow your seed and irrigate by foot like a vegetable garden." And of course, that is a reflection of, what life was like in ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt was a very fertile land where crops grew in a great abundance, but not because of the rain, but because of the River Nile. And the River Nile would flood on a regular annual schedule, but apart from that, most of this agricultural activity was based on the hard labor of irrigation. And so the water had to be drawn from the River Nile and placed upon the crops. And this was obviously a lot of work, but it made for a wonderful and great crop. And that was basically how Egypt thrived and survived in the world. Moses goes on, "But the land you are crossing over to occupy is a land of hills and valleys, watered by rain from the sky, a land that the Lord your God looks after. The eyes of the Lord your God are always on it, from the beginning of the year to the end of the year." And so it's an interesting contrast, isn't it, between ancient Egypt, this civilization that was very much based on the hard labor of irrigation, and this new land, this promised land where the water falls from the sky. And it is God who sends the water and the rain. So in Egypt, apparently, you are dependent on your labor to create this abundance of crops, whereas in the new land, God provides that abundance. Of course, as Moses goes on, there's a catch. In order for the rain to fall, the people have to behave. They have to do everything that is commanded in the law, and then the rains will come. And if they fall short a little bit, well, then the rains won't come. So it's just a really interesting contrast. And of course, it's not like this in reality. It's not one or the other. But here it's set up as this opposition where, either your hard labor irrigating the land is what creates your abundance, or you lie back and you depend on God, and God sends the rain and you do the right things, and then you experience the abundance. Are you going to depend on yourself, or are you going to depend on God? Are you going to trust in yourself and your hard work, or are you going to trust in God? And of course, life's not just one or the other. Basically, I believe that our task in this world is each one of us, we try and do the very best we can. We try and put in the best effort we can. And we also learn to trust in God, especially to provide for those things that we cannot do, for those things that are out of our control, like the rain and the wind. And it's both. It's both. Relying on your own labor, your hard work, and relying on God and trusting in God's great provision. That's life. That's where we are. And it's this interesting contrast in Deuteronomy between Egypt and the promised land. But we live in both lands. We live in both lands where we work hard in order to prosper, and where we trust in God. And we learn that there are things that are beyond our control, and that we live in trust and faith. And that's how we walk as people of God. Lord our God, thank you. Thank you for this incredible land where you have placed us, where we have this possibility through hard work, through our efforts to create some prosperity for ourselves and our families. But we also recognize that we are daily dependent on you, and we thank you for your care and watching over us in all that we do. Amen.